Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Vintage Club Conversations. Our episode today is very special. We have David Yockelson, Distinguished VP and Gartner Fellow, joining us for the conversation. To give you all some background, David has over 3 decades of experience in the B2B IT world in executive, management, and practitioner roles. In these roles, he has focused on a variety of business aspects, such as product and technical marketing, corp dev and strategy, field enablement, product evangelism, and strategic tech influencer services. That's a lot. Welcome, David.
Manisha, thank you so much. And thank you for making me feel even older than I actually am. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, over your decades and not years in the B2B IT world, you have witnessed the rise of SaaS and its impact on traditional business models, right? What are the most critical lessons you can share with us about scaling SaaS and B2B orgs, particularly in the context of PLG and SLG?
So I think there's an overarching commandment or state of mind that one has to be in as a technology vendor in general and as a SaaS vendor in particular. And that is that you have to put yourself in the place of the customer rather than focusing on your product, your company, and so on. And that's a truth, whether we're talking about marketing, whether we're talking about sales, whether we're talking about how to price a product. Too many tech companies are a little too enthralled with their own capabilities, and they don't take a customer view in. When you start to do that, and when you start to think of the range of people in your accounts, in your customers, the buyers, the users, all of those things, then it broadens your perspective on how you have to speak to them and how you have to reach them, which is a really short story of how we've gotten to product led from a tradition of sales led.
Interesting. So we are increasingly, how you mentioned, right? We are increasingly seeing a shift from product-led growth mentality to product-led sales mentality, right? Which basically balances PLG with more traditional enterprise models to ensure success. How do you see these hybrid GTM models evolving? What are the key factors driving their adoption and success? I mean, are there things like having a playbook, frameworks, training within the organization? How does that shift happen in an enterprise?
Yeah, that's my favorite phrase. Shift happens. And so it's useful just to do a little bit of how did we get to the world of hybrid, basically. So, you go back, let's say 10 years when PLG first started, and the prevailing attitude was the product sells itself. We don't need sales, we don't need marketing. And after a while, the B2B SaaS companies figured out that that's not exactly correct. It doesn't really work that way. And there became the realization that if we want to close larger deals, then at some point, buyers are going to have to talk to sellers. On the other hand, it's still a reality that it's really hard to get people's attention. So starting exclusively from a top-down sales-led model or motion isn't going to work most of the time. So we take product-led, the good idea of product-led, which is let buyers do what they want and learn about you the way that they want at their pace. So you give them a product experience of some sort, but realize that at some point, hopefully, they've seen value from that product experience, whether it's a free trial or a freemium or an open source offering or an interactive demo, whatever that might be. And then at that point, it's the magic of transforming that advocacy to the business outcomes or the team outcomes or the larger value that that customer will get from the products. And that's when sellers need to jump in. So that was a really concise history path from PLG to product-led sales to hybrid. It's my belief that in the vast majority of situations, companies are going to need to be in a hybrid go-to-market. And what that means for them, I'm going to finally answer your question, is that it's really an all hands on board kind of a thing. So you can't halfway do product-led or hybrid. It means that you have to have understanding and agreement and alignment between marketing, sales, customer success, executives who may be in a real hurry to see results, and things take a little while to percolate here. So that's number one. Number two, you have to know what those prospective users and buyers are doing in their product experiences. So you have to be smart about instrumentation, product analytics, engagement analytics, so that you know when they're seeing value from those products that they're trying and maybe using for free for some length of time. And then the last important thing is that should lead to better intelligence about who to approach and when to approach them from a sales perspective,
Yeah.
which all sounds really easy, but a lot to do.
It's a lot of hard work. So, do you think this shift has actually happened because there are just too many options for buyers these days in every SaaS category, right? Right? If you see a decade back, you might probably see a couple of platforms, SaaS platforms in each category. Now there are at least, hundreds of platforms.
Yeah.
Maybe there are always number one, two, three, but still there are like tons of platforms in every category. So do you think that is the reason for this shift? One of the reasons for the shift?
It's Manisha, it's one of several reasons for the shift. So we can look at it from both sides of the equation. Certainly there's greater competition there. And so from the vendor side of it, greater competition, more products per category, more categories with Gen AI, sort of exploding and bringing either infused, improved products or new products, all that sort of stuff. But I think that the major element of this is what's happened on the buyer side. So, as the makeup of buying teams has changed from being strictly IT to more line of business and functional plus IT, the way that they make decisions, the pace at which they make decisions, and the fact that those new participants in buying teams aren't experienced at buying technology, so that makes it rough. The ages
Yeah,
are decreasing. So unlike myself, who's just getting older, buying teams are getting younger. And
yeah,
with that, they want to play with technology and they don't want to talk to salespeople, at least not right
yeah,
away. So if you mix all those things together, that's
yeah.
those are the reasons why we're where we are.
Totally, totally agree to this one, David. Well, switching gears a little bit to one of the hottest trends today, like SaaS was a few years back, Gen AI, right? Gen AI has caught in a big way in last 18 months, and we have seen like crazy adoption. And we know this is still just the beginning and almost still a research phase, right? How do you see Gen AI shaping the future of product development and strategic planning in B2B companies?
Yeah, I think the funny sort of story I have is, when in past, when you had emerging theoretically cool technologies, they were still very technical. So you look at things like blockchain, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was talked about a lot, but Gen AI is the only thing I've heard talked about at bars. Like with just lay people walking around. Oh my gosh, did you use ChatGPT? This kind of stuff. So very,
Yeah.
very pervasive, and that sounds jokey, but that understanding and pervasiveness and belief that there's really something amazing in terms of value for the customers there has made it spread like wildfire among the buyers. So at board
Yeah.
level, companies are saying, what are we doing? When are we doing this? How are we doing it? That sort of thing. So huge demand. And so the vendor community, technology world is rapidly responding to that. And they're responding in a couple of different ways. And if we think about it just generally, there's how do we make our products better, and how do
Mm.
we introduce Gen AI infused or Gen AI capabilities on their own? And that has, ruined, I don't know how many different roadmaps, in companies. Like, hey, we've got a student body left. Now we have to do this.
Yeah.
So either we're going to, APIs to ChatGPT, or let's build our own LLMs or LAMs. And I was going to say all of those things take time, but in this new world, the time is shrinking. So the speed with which these things are happening is increasing. So on the one hand, many, many new offerings. either native Gen AI sorts of capabilities or infusions like we all know about Microsoft Copilot and ServiceNow Assist and all these things. So that's
Yeah.
one. But you have the productivity side of this also. And so with great haste, the vendor world is trying to figure out, well, how can we apply this technology to make ourselves better, faster,
Yeah.
all that sort of thing. So I'm an old product marketer. So from a product marketing and in general marketing and content perspective, it's already, pervading the vendor world in, whether it's everything from translation to messaging content, and then over to sales to, can we make more effective outbound communications, or can I learn about
Yeah.
this vertical market instantly and then, say something intelligent to my buyer? So very, very pervasive.
Yeah. But do you think it's also like because the kind of expectations that users have with generative AI, it's very difficult for vendors to actually meet the expectations, right? Because once they just try out a couple of things on Chat GPT, they think
Yeah.
that, Gen AI can actually do everything for them, which is not the case, right? I mean,
Wait a minute. It can't?
it is
That's
definitely.
news. Wait.
Let's wait for AGI.
No, so yeah, I mean, Gartner is kind of famous for its hype cycles and the peak of inflated
Yeah,
expectations and the trough of disillusionment and that sort of thing. And we're rapidly moving through the curve there. But I think generally speaking, it's pretty much delivering what people expect of it. Now, I'm a cynic, I guess, as an analyst. So I never believe everything at face value. Um, and so there are elements of, it's not so much can it, but should we use it to do
yeah,
this? Can I trust a Gen AI infused outbound email application to give me the right content, or do I have to look at it before I go forward, that kind of thing. So I think it's more making sure that the right checks and balances are in place, and checks and balances both from a process perspective, but also what I'll call AI safety perspective.
yeah,
So if we are licensing technology from another provider or integrating with somebody's chat model or GPT model rather, are we putting ourselves in front of a moving train by dispensing content or information that hasn't been legally proven
yeah,
to be their own, so all the IP management sorts of stuff. So
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I think trust and privacy are the two greatest concerns when it comes to implementing this technology. And that's why, we always tell our users
yeah,
that we will automate things 80% for you, but there will still be 20% human touch required. I mean, see that as a gain and not that why are you not automating it to 100%, right? So there'll always be that,
yeah.
at least for now, there'll be that 20% human touch which will be required.
Yeah, we say trust but verify in that, and it's interesting. We in a survey we did of technology executives, I guess it was earlier this year. The number one concern with respect to Gen AI was data privacy by far, for all of them, both from the perspective of their own data and what might get out,
Hmm.
but also the veracity of the data that they would be consuming in products that they were using.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, again, switching gears back to value sharing, right? What is your take on value sharing with customers? How should enterprises accurately assess what is the ROI for customers from their product or services?
So I'll give you one more interesting stat that sort of leads into this. So we talk a little bit about PLG, and a common part of a product-led motion is a free offer. The number
Hmm.
one application type being used, or being sought rather, for free trials is Gen AI, or Gen AI related
Yeah,
applications. So there's a huge demand, but free trial doesn't mean you have it for free forever. It's for a limited time, that sort of thing. So just by way of a little bit of background, but if I open the aperture and we think more generally, um, when you ask that question, the first thing that comes into my head, having worked with sales teams a lot, is, boy, we really don't want to discount things when we don't have to.
Yeah.
So, from the perspective of an in-market vendor, I think what everybody would strive for is what we call a high quality deal. And what a high quality
Mm.
deal is, it's that the buyer paid a premium price and received the premium set of capabilities, and we got all the money for it. We didn't discount for it. So everybody
Yeah.
theoretically is happy with that. So that's what we want to strive for. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't, and a lot of this depends upon where you are in the evolution of your product or service or combination. So, it absolutely makes sense to
Mm.
do alpha releases, beta releases. It makes sense to go look for early adopter customers if you're new into market, for a variety of different reasons. Does the product work the way we think it does?
Yeah.
Are we packaging it the way that we think
Yeah.
people want to consume it? And then, what does it tell us about pricing and so on? So all of those things are valid to do. On the other side of the equation, we and I, talk about the value of value, and so the ability for the customers to realize the value of the purchases they've made. They have to be able to see how that product or service or sets thereof have improved their business, i.e.,
Mm.
is there some sort of risk reduction, economic return, something. And the interesting thing about that is customers are really bad at that. Customers are very poor at tracking the value and the ROI that they get from their purchases. And traditionally, the vendor community hasn't been that good at it either. But our data tells us, and I hear it daily, that buyers actually prefer that vendors help them do these things. And they prefer vendors that do what I call closed loop value, help them figure out the value they're going to get before the purchase,
Mm.
and then help them figure out the value they got after they've implemented it. So value realization is a really, really important thing on the
Yeah.
post-purchase implementation side. And it's certainly not a new thing, but lots and lots of attention being paid to that now.
Right. So I haven't really seen a lot of platforms showing ROI in the product itself. And it is mainly, especially if it's a mid-market or enterprise deal, it's usually done by MBRs and QBRs, right? Do you think those are the kind of still the way of doing things, showing the value to the customers, or there are, newer trends which you are seeing in this space?
The newer trend is, let's not rely on what typically is a boring, awful QBR where we and the customer play a guessing game of, well, how many people are using it? Oh, that's nice. Are they seeing value? So we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
What ideally we want to do is we want to walk into those conversations and say, hey, we know by virtue of the number of users you have, the level of consumption of features, level of engagement, and what that means relative to the use cases that they're executing against.
Hmm. Hmm.
We know that as a result, you're achieving this amount of savings or you're driving this amount of revenue. And that there's a lot to be done in order to
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah.
So I think that if I were to encapsulate it in where the new stuff is, it's doing what we talk about in PLG on the way in, which is hopefully using data to figure out when somebody is a product qualified lead based on
Hmm.
product analytics, engagement analytics, and consumption and all of that. No reason why we shouldn't be doing exactly the same thing among the existing customers, and then saying,
Yeah.
wow, we set success metrics on the way in, hopefully, and here's where we are against them on the other side of that. Um, the reality is, not most companies don't do either one, and certainly there are very few that do both.
Yeah.
But that's like I say, I think that's the next great frontier in value management or value discussions, is the automation of value realization.
Great. A lot of things to ponder on in terms of, how to really do better account management, I would say.
Exactly. That's exactly
Great.
right.
So looking ahead, what are your top two predictions for the most significant changes and challenges that B2B IT orgs will face with this continued advancement, right? We have been hearing AI as a service, services companies are, coming back or are going to get even bigger now. What are top two predictions that you have?
Top two predictions. Let's see. Well, there's sort of I'm going to combine a couple of them into one.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's a prediction or here's an interesting future state that could happen. So when we talk about PLG, we're talking about, in a lot of cases, trying to automate a lot of the what would have been a sales process and part of what would have been a buying process. And so somebody looks at a product, tries it out, likes it, maybe they press a button and make a purchase and get provisioned, or humans step in at some point. But it's quite possible that we have an entirely machine-based two-way communication where you have automated buyers
Yeah,
talking to automated sellers, and transactions, purchases, even to a degree implementations happening automatically
yeah,
through the entire process. And we see elements or inklings of a little of that today. If you have an account with a marketplace like AWS Marketplace or Azure, there are committed spends that companies have. And so there's a degree of automation already that says,
yeah,
if I'm interested in this, hit a button and poof, everything happens. I don't think that we're anywhere near that yet. And I am not predicting the death of a salesman thing that some people would talk about. I think maybe SDRs and BDRs might be on life support in a little bit, because if I had to look at jobs that are more easily first augmented and
yeah,
potentially replaceable, that would be one. And parenthetically, sales. We have I'm making a picture. There's a GenAI fearometer that we have, and we map different functions into it. And the sales function is one of the most scared that they're going to be replaced.
yeah.
And I think these are the reasons why.
I think the good thing is everyone can move up the value chain now,
Yeah.
right? I mean, an SDR can become an account executive quickly. They can actually work on those skills to move up the value chain.
Yeah, I think the biggest, I don't know if it's that magical a prediction, but we get better. So to your point, I should be applying this technology, and let's talk about it in the context of how things like PLG work or hybrid go-to-market works. I should be able to pinpoint a lot more specifically either what sort of accounts I should be working with, or
Hmm.
specifically which accounts are the ones that are most likely to close or buy
Yeah,
something, and what action should I take to make that happen. That's all near term advancement could kind of be done today. It's a little bit not spit and string, but a little bit herky jerky, but the automation baselines are there and getting better.
yeah. For rest of the use cases, we let the buyer bot and seller bot talk to each
Yeah,
other.
exactly.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time, David. This episode will definitely be a treasure trove of information for everyone in sales and thinking about Gen AI. It was lovely talking to you.
Likewise, I thank you so much for having me, and I hope to do this again sometime. This is fantastic. Thank you.